Now we will pronounce the first 3 mantras. Even if you don't understand them, let their vibration wash upon ourselves. And let them settle our mind further into peace within. Shanno mitraha sham varunaha Shanno bhavatvaryama Shanna indro brihaspatihi Shanno vishnururukramaha Namo brahmane namaste vayo Tvameva pratyaksham brahmasi Tvameva pratyaksham brahma vadishyami Ritam vadishyami Satyam vadishyami Tanmamavatu Tadvaktaramavatu Avatu mam Avatu vaktaram Om Shantiḥ 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 Om Sahana vavatu Sahanau bhunaktu Sahaviryam karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma vidvishavahai Om Shantiḥ Shantiḥ Śāntiḥ Om Yaschandasam Rishabho Vishwarupaha Chandobhyodhyamritat sambabhuva Samendro medhaya sprinotu amṛtasya devadharano bhūyāsam Shariram me vicharshanam Jihva me madhumattama Karnabhyam bhūri vishruvam Brahmanaha koshosi medhaya pihitaha Shrutam me gopaya Om Shantiḥ 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 These mantras are to be pronounced, recited, and meditated upon, for example, in places like Vasishtha Gufa. If you have not visited it and you are still for a while in Rishikesh, then you should really go up there. It's just 25 kilometers. And if you are lucky and if there are not too many people already there, then just sitting in that cave and reciting some of these mantras, which sometimes even the people living there actually do. It is such a soothing and pacifying experience. What to say if we understand the meaning, the significance, and can meditate on the meaning and the message of peace that is being conveyed in these mantras. And it is with this purpose in mind, because ultimately the caves of the Himalayas where the masters have sat for centuries are either inaccessible or the ones that are accessible are visited by so many people already that it becomes difficult. It is becoming increasingly difficult to find a peaceful cave. And that's why one of my teachers, Swami Veda, he used to say very bluntly that most of the caves in the Himalayas have been polluted, but there is still one cave which can be made clean, which can be purified, and in which this peace can be experienced. And this is the cave of the heart, which is within each one of us, Hridaya Guha, as the Upanishads refer to it, the cave of the heart, which can be purified, which can be cleansed through the practices of yoga and the peace that these mantras speak about, can be experienced by sitting within that cave. And it is ultimately the only purpose of those caves, those external caves in the Himalayan mountains or in any other of the mountains, is in fact to teach us to sit within our inner cave. That is the only ultimate purpose. There is no other purpose of these external caves. Since we are starting this session after a break of a few months, I will give a very brief introduction to what we are studying. We have already studied the 3 mantras that we just recited earlier. We have discussed them. That was already 30 classes, which means we took around 30 hours to discuss these 3 mantras. That's approximately 10 hours for each mantra. And because friends keep on coming and going, we record it, we put it on YouTube so that those who come new can go back to the previous sessions, and those who don't come back for a long while can continue to study them online from wherever they are. These 10 Shanti mantras, these 10 mantras of peace, they are part of a collection of yogic teachings which are known as the Upanishads. The word Upanishad means to sit close to the master, and ultimately to sit close to the master within, to the inner master. And the wisdom, the insights, the experiences that were acquired, achieved by some of the yogis, particularly prior to the Buddha, which makes these collections of teachings very ancient because they were already composed in their present form. Most of them were composed in their present form before the Buddha, so that makes them approximately 500 years, more than 500 years before Christ. Extremely ancient collection of teachings of the yogic masters who, through the practice of yoga, through the practical path of yoga, purified their heart, which simply means that purified the heart from distractions, from thoughts and ideas which pull away our attention from ourselves and plunges it away from ourselves into the external world. And because of that, we become lost. We forget ourselves, we forget our true identity, we become confused of our true nature, and all that we just explore is the world out there. So when we speak of impurities, what we mean is that any thought, any idea, any tendency that leads us away from ourselves, pulls us away from ourselves, pulls our awareness, our attention away from this inner center of peace. That is an impurity, and virtues, noble qualities, whatever word we want to use, are qualities that are evolved through the practice of yoga, which render us centered, which enable us to enter within ourselves and be in that peaceful state of complete inner fulfillment in which there is nothing lacking and therefore no desire, no need to acquire something out there, no dependency on something external to find peace and happiness within. That was the goal of these masters who developed the path of yoga, who practiced yoga. And this, the Upanishads, are part of the most ancient collection of such mystical, poetic, can call them spiritual musings of antiquity on the Indian subcontinent. They provided the fertile soil on which great thinkers and masters of the subsequent centuries could come into existence, whether it is the modern spiritual masters or the great spiritual masters of the medieval times or the great spiritual masters of antiquity up to the Buddha. All of them, we can say that they were like a fruit of a fertile soil which was provided by the Upanishads. That is how important they were for Patanjali, the master of the author of the Yoga Sutras, the classical text on yoga. These Upanishads are of paramount importance. He refers to them as agama. The word that he uses in his Yoga Sutra is agama. Agama simply means received teachings, teachings which have been received by the students from the masters. Agama means that which comes down, the wisdom that comes down through a lineage of masters. That is the word that he uses. And he says, when it comes to deeper spiritual truths, they are like our eyes, they are like our ears, they are like our our faculty of inference by which helps us to guide us to explore these inner truths. That is the work that the agamas do. Ultimate goal of yoga is to transcend this, even this wisdom, because it contains of words, and the transverbal experience is about transcending words, but the path goes through words. And that is why, as part of Kriya Yoga, as part of the niyamas which he mentions before asana practice in the eight-limbed path of yoga, when he speaks of swadhyaya, which means self-study, studying about the self, that is where the Upanishads come into the picture. Because they teach us, they are not about anybody, they are just about ourselves. They are about this inner core. They provide us milestones, even if they are imaginary milestones, but they provide us milestones on this inner pathless path. That is the work that these Upanishadic masters have done. And Patanjali was deeply committed to protect this wisdom. And it is thanks to Patanjali and many more like him, before him and after him, that we still study. We still have access to these words, to this wisdom, after more than 2,500, 2,900, 3,000, 3,500 years, depending on which part of the Upanishads we are studying. It is an amazing achievement on its own. In fact, when he, in his commentary on Sanskrit grammar, back then at 250 BC, when he was asked, why are you writing such a detailed commentary on Sanskrit grammar? 6 volumes. Back then, when there were no paper, no proper ink, and he was writing this huge commentary. What is the purpose? He said, Raksha, the protection of this yogic wisdom. So that is how much importance. One of the purposes is this. Bhagavad Gita, which is like the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, are referred to as Yoga Sutra, the aphorisms of yoga. Similarly, the Bhagavad Gita, which is referred to as Yoga Shastra, the teachings on yoga, is nothing but a quintessential presentation of the Upanishads. Everything that we find in the Bhagavad Gita is very much like the essence of the Upanishads. But sometimes the essence becomes so concise, so expressed in so little words, that to fully understand it in its depth, a person has to go back to the origin of which the essence was created. So that is how important these Upanishads have been. In short, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to state that they lie at the very source of all spiritual undertakings that were undertaken on the Indian subcontinent. So that is the Upanishads. Just a brief introduction about the Upanishads. These 10 mantras which we have in front of us are known as the Shanti Mantras, the mantras for peace. And they have been selected from the various Upanishads. Usually if you look at the end of each mantra, you will see the quotation and you will see from which Upanishad they have been collected. As part of my upbringing, and it is the same in most of the spiritual institution in India, these 10 Shanti Mantras are very much part of the daily routine, which means that our study sessions started by reciting these 10 Shanti Mantras every day in the morning. After the morning prayers and everything, we had to wake up at 4, be at the temple at 5, and then after the morning prayers, when the morning sessions, study sessions started at 6:30, every day, the first thing that we did was to recite these 10 Shanti Mantras for years and years and years together. Initially without understanding, just benefiting from the peaceful vibrations that they emanate, and then eventually by dedicating time to understand them, to meditate them, and to contemplate them. As a person grows in their life, as a person grows deeper through their practice, deeper layers come to one's understanding. So it's an ongoing process. Understanding the meaning and significance of these mantras is an ongoing process. I consider myself extremely fortunate that in the form of these classes, over the past 1 year, I have been fortunate to explore the mantras to the depth where my understanding, my own practice allows me to reach. But again, maybe things will look very differently after 10 years, after 20 years, because we keep on growing, we keep on changing, our understanding changes, our growth. As we grow, we keep on changing, we are never the same person. And with that, our understanding also changes. But at this moment, I think the reason, one of the most important reasons because of which we are studying these Shanti Mantras from the Upanishads as part of our learning of asanas, so that we can also be introduced, even if it's just a very basic introduction, to the spiritual, or rather the deeper inner aspect of asana practice. So many times, so often, this question is asked, that what is the spiritual benefit of practicing asanas? Every now and again, this question. Just recently, a friend, I don't know if he's here today, he asked it at the end of one of the previous yoga classes. We can benefit a deeper inner benefit from our asana practice when we understand their spiritual significance. When we understand, just a typical example, just a very basic example would be, we practice vṛkṣasya. We practice vṛkṣasya, we practice adhomukha vṛkṣasya. And all we think, because in English it's the tree pose, we think about the tree. All we think is about a tree. A tree has a lot to teach, I concede. A tree has a lot to teach. A tree in yoga is a symbol of endurance, is a symbol of forgiveness. Because people sometimes throw stones at it, and yet in response it gives fruits. So the masters have seen this happening, that sometimes children, they throw stones at the tree so that it hits the fruit and the fruit falls down. So, and they give shade to traveling wanderers who travel from place to place, and when they feel tremendously hot, they find that cool breeze in the shades of a tree. A tree itself has a lot to teach. already if we can meditate and if we can contemplate on these and so many other properties of the tree, of a tree, we can learn, we can benefit tremendously spiritually. But then there is this tree of life about which this mantra, this Shanti mantra, the next one that we are going to study, it's about the tree of life. So when we study these Upanishads, they give us to meditate on something. And of course, that is only possible after we have mastered the asana. Because until we have not mastered the asana and we can remain comfortably for a while in that asana, how can we go deeper into what the asana, what the message of the asana is? But my point simply was that when we practice asana with these deeper, mystical, spiritual, inner aspects of any one of the asanas, every asana has that. That can only be explored when a person practices the asana with these deeper teachings in one's awareness. Then one can explore the deeper inner benefit of those asanas. Otherwise, it becomes difficult. But with this, every asana itself, every posture in itself becomes a mantra, becomes a method to meditate. And a repetition of asana that we do, we practice the same asana again and again, 2 times, 3 times, maybe even 108 times, if we can do it, such as the 108 Surya Namaskaras, it becomes a japa. It becomes a form of japa, repetition of a mantra. Because every time we practice that asana with that awareness, the asana becomes a mantra. Then we don't need any other mantra. The asana itself becomes a form of a mantra, and the repetition of those asanas becomes a form of japa. And japa, why is japa? Japa, which means repetition of a mantra, why is it so important? Because it prepares a practitioner for meditation. So, this approach to our asana practice, just to give one concrete example as to how these deeper teachings can be brought into the very practical aspect of what we are doing. Because ultimately, any type of meditation will be practiced in some form of asana. That's why even this question that is sometimes asked, do you practice meditation? Oh no, we don't practice meditation, we practice asana. We focus more on asana. But which meditation is practiced out of an asana? Every form of meditation is practiced within an asana. It's just a building up, going down to the very basics, to the very foundations, perfecting one from the very foundations and then building step by step the perfection of one's practice. Can maybe pronounce this mantra. I will pronounce each word one by one. You can then follow me. Om, 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 Ahaṁ, 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 vṛkṣasya, 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 rerivā, 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 Kīrtiḥ, 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 pṛṣṭhaṁ, 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 gireriva, 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 Ūrdhva-pavitro, 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 vājinīva, 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 svamṛtam asmi, svamṛtam asmi, svamṛtam asmi, Draviṇaṁ, 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 savarcasam, 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 Sumedhā, 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 amṛtokṣitaḥ, 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 iti, triśaṅkor, 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 vedānuvacanam, 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 Om, 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 Śāntiḥ, 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 Śāntiḥ. Let us read the translation and then we will recite the whole mantra together. Om, I am the mover, impeller of the tree of the world. My fame is high like a mountain's peak. I am pure from above, i.e. at the source. I am like the beautiful, immortal essence present within the sun. I am a shining treasure, the one with beautiful intelligence, soaked with nectar. Such was Triśaṅku's declaration after enlightenment. Om, peace, peace, peace. Now let us pronounce the whole mantra. Ahaṁ vṛkṣasya rerivā, Kīrtiḥ pṛṣṭhaṁ girer, Ūrdhva-pavitro vājinīva, svamṛtam asmi, Draviṇaṁ savarcasam, Sumedhā amṛtokṣitaḥ, iti triśaṅkor vedānuvacanam. Om Śāntiḥ, Śāntiḥ, Śāntiḥ. So first of all, what is this mantra? What is this mantra explaining? The purpose of this mantra already from very antiquity was to pronounce it. And the masters actually point out that someone who can't study all the Vedas because he doesn't have the time or he doesn't have the opportunity can still benefit by reciting, by repeatedly reciting this mantra. He can benefit by doing japa of this mantra. That is what the word svadhyaya means. The character that has been mentioned in this mantra is a very, very interesting character. And I like such characters because, like many of the ancient sages, he started his life as an evil person, as a very, very bad person, as a very immoral person. And yet, he built himself up to a state in which he had this experience. This is what, if you look at the last part of this mantra, Iti Triśaṅkur vedānuvacanam, such was Triśaṅku's declaration after enlightenment, after he experienced that Shanti, that peace. Veda means, which I've translated as enlightenment, but Veda means wisdom. It means awareness. It means insight. It means direct inner insight. Such was the exclamation of Triśaṅku. After he had this direct inner insight that the yogic masters speak of it. His story is a story of hope because despite all his mistakes, despite all his shortcomings, despite the fact that he was, due to his bad things that he did in his life, he was shunned by the society, thrown out by the society, not once but twice. Despite being a prince, he had to live for a very long time at the fringes of the society, out of the society, and yet he acquired this experience. So he is one of those figures like Valmiki, famous, who was a robber, but then became a great poet and the composer of Ramayana, became a great saint. All great saints do have a past. And he's one of those great saints and sages who had a past. I will tell his story very briefly. It is mentioned in various of the Puranas. He was like most of the evil people. He was not inherently a bad person. And this is also the beauty of this story, that it also shows that he had a good side. And every bad person, even if we see the bad in that bad person, there is always a good side in that person. In fact, in Mahabharata, there comes a story about Duryodhana and Yudhishthira. Duryodhana is the evil character of Mahabharata, and Yudhishthira is the noble character of the Mahabharata. Both were brothers, and they were given an assignment by their teacher, that Duryodhana was given the assignment that find a good person in the kingdom, and the good person was given the assignment, find a bad person in the kingdom. And the good one, which means Yudhishthira, he traveled throughout the kingdom. He visited the worst places of his kingdom, and yet he realized that every bad person has a good side to them. And he saw that good side, and he came back to his teacher and said, there is no bad person in my kingdom. And the bad Duryodhana, he also traveled the length and breadth of the kingdom and came back and said, I'm sorry, my teacher, I find no good person in the whole kingdom. I looked in the ashrams, I looked in the monasteries, I looked in the yoga schools. Everywhere politics was going on. Everywhere there were problems. Everywhere people had their dark sides. There is not a single good person, even in places like Rishikesh. There is no good person in my kingdom. So that was his conclusion. So we see what we are. So the same thing is about this story of Triśaṅku. As a prince, he was in love with a beautiful girl, and she was not in love with him. She got married with somebody else. What he did the biggest atrocity that he committed was that he abducted her from the marriage hall while she was getting married to the one with whom she wanted to get married. He abducted her from there against her will. And her father, who was the king, became so outraged. He was the king of Ayodhya, who was so outraged and angry that he completely, can you say disowned? Or to completely disown your only son from your kingdom and banish him from your kingdom and sent him out from his kingdom. So then he was forced to live outside in the forests, and for many years. Then what happened is that he used to hunt, and he used to live on the meat, on the flesh, by hunting animals. One day he saw a woman with a young boy, and the rope was on his neck, and she was pulling a young boy with a rope. He sees this and he asks, "What are you doing?" And this was a time of great famine of 12 years. And the story is that she had several children, and one of her least beloved sons, she wanted to sell him so that she can get some money to feed the rest of her children. Because she had nothing, they were starving, they would have starved to death. So he sees this woman pulling her son towards the market, and asks, "What is going on? Why you are pulling this young man towards the market, this young child towards the market, like an animal?" And then she says, "He's my son, and we have had for months together nothing to eat. My whole family is dying. My only hope is that I can sell him and get some money out of that and then feed my children." He says, "Don't do that. It is your child. Don't do that. I will feed your family." So after that, what he did, every day when he used to go and hunt, he said that under a particular tree, because I'm not allowed to enter the kingdom, so I will leave a little bit of meat, a little bit of flesh under a tree, and you can collect it from there and feed your family from there. But don't sell your only child. And that is what happens. And he, for years and years together, he takes care of this family of an extremely poor. Slowly and slowly, as his what happens there also is that one thing that happens, one day he could not find any hunt, and he went deeper and deeper into the forest, and he reached the ashrama of Vasishtha. Vasishtha was a great sage. We know him also in yoga as Vasishthasana. So he reached deep into the forest near his ashrama, and the only animal that he could see was a cow which belonged to Vasishtha, and it was grazing around the ashrama. So he killed that cow, and two reasons were there. First of all, he was very angry towards Vasishtha, because Vasishtha was the teacher of his father, and he had actually inspired. Partly he was the reason why his own father had disowned him, so he had always this tremendous hate towards Vasishtha, and it was also partly due to his tremendous hunger. For these two reasons, he kills the cow, he eats it himself, and he also brings a little bit of that flesh to the family, to the starving family, like he did always. The family also consumed it without knowing that it is beef. The story continues that after a while, his father comes to know about his good side. And when his father became very old and he was nearly dying and there was no heir because he had no other child, and he saw that this man had changed himself tremendously, he welcomed him back and then made him again the king, his heir of the kingdom. Triśaṅku, obviously, now his name comes, this name Triśaṅku comes from these three things, that the three atrocities, because Triśaṅku, the word Triśaṅku in itself means someone who has committed the three atrocities in his life. And these were the three atrocities: forcing oneself against the wish of a girl on her first thing, the second thing, going against the instructions of the teacher, and the third thing, to kill living beings, living animals. So these three atrocities he had performed, and that's why even though originally his name was Satyavrata, a beautiful name, somebody who had taken the vow of always speaking the truth, that was his childhood name, but he became notorious, I must say, notorious by the name of Triśaṅku, the one with the three spikes, the one with the three causes of pain and suffering. And of course, after he became the king, still his teacher never accepted him, which means that when he wanted to pursue the deeper practices of yoga, his teacher and all other great masters who deeply respected Vasishtha, none of them was ready to give him any teaching, even when he became a king, because of all the atrocities that he had performed in his life. Nobody was ready. But then, another great master, Vishwamitra, who also we know from yoga, Vishwamitrasana. If you know Vishwamitrasana, a very difficult asana. I cannot do it. I wanted to practice all the asanas today that I will be speaking about. This was the only one that I couldn't. Otherwise, vṛkṣasya, adhomurkha vṛkṣasya, vasishthasana, vṛkṣasya in vasishthasana. Most of these thoughts that I'm sharing today came while practicing these asanas today morning, but Vishwamitrasana still has to wait for a while. For that, I have to wait. Maybe a few months, years more. But Vishwamitra, the friend of the world, as his name goes, he could see through, and he accepted him as his disciple, as his student. The name Vishwamitra in itself is beautiful because he's the friend of all. So even though he was casted out of the society, he was an outcast, he lived a hideous, a terrible life, and yet when he saw that the desire to know the deeper truth, the desire to experience the heaven within was so tremendous and earnest within him, he accepted him as his disciple, as his student. And that is when the transformation starts. And like the famous Gayatri mantra, which is Om Bhurvuvasvaha Tatsaviturvarenyam, is the quintessence of the teachings of Vishwamitra. Very few people actually know whose teaching the Gayatri mantra is. This is the quintessence of the experience of his disciple, his notorious, widely unaccepted, outcasted disciple, Triśaṅku. That is in short. I've just told the story in brief. There are many other stories related to his life and what has happened. But just to give a brief outlook to the personality whose teachings this mantra collects, I think it is sage Kapila, again one of the most ancient masters of yoga. I think really in true sense, the forefather of yoga, sage Kapila, who points out in one of his teachings in the Mahabharata that the teachings of the Upanishads and the path that has been described in the Upanishads are open for all. That's a path because it is a path that leads towards oneself. And it is a path that is about ourselves. It is the birthright of every human being. Whatever is being taught is the birthright of every being. So this was just some historical introduction to the person. We will touch the actual mantra in our next class. But as you can see, this mantra is about yoga, is about his experience of yoga, is about his experience of union of the individual consciousness with the universal consciousness. That is what this mantra, all the Upanishads, all the teachings of the Upanishads are about this yoga, about this merging of the tiny, limited consciousness which seems limited to this body because of this wall that we have created around ourselves. I versus this, I versus you, and we have divided everything into these two, I versus this. It is about overcoming that boundary. Every master of the Upanishads, whether it is Vishwamitra, whether it is Vasishtha, whether it is Triśaṅku, whether it is Vamadeva, some of them from their very births led very noble lives. Some of them had very immoral and non-virtuous lives, and yet they found peace within themselves, and the teachings of the Upanishads are about that peace. So with this, we conclude today's session, and we will come back to this mantra in our next session. Still, if there is any question or anything that you would like me to clarify, to expound further, then please let me know. Please keep a few minutes. Yes. These are? These are all from the Upanishads, but this second to the last one about the Vedas, I think it's considered from the Rig Veda. Yes, so yes. That's technically not in the Upanishad. Again, those mystical parts of even the Vedas, they are referred to as the Upanishads. Because it's a whole Veda, and wherever there are mystical parts, so even if they are not part of, in fact, this one is part of the Rig Veda, yes. Even then, they are referred to as the Upanishads themselves. And so did Śāntiḥ do that, or it's just becomes general? I think when I look at how Shankaracharya presents it, for example, certain parts of the Rig Veda themselves were already declared to be Upanishads way before Shankaracharya. Yes, and the Upanishads had been collected in their present form already way before Shankaracharya. He was not the one who collected them. The Upanishads were actually given to him in the 8th century by his teacher, and it was a copy which was torn into pieces. And he said that we are in an era now where all this is being forgotten. Nobody is reading them. Nobody is practicing them. It is your duty to revive them. And so his work is actually to revive them. So he yes, they are the most important ones. Yes, the important ones, 13, 14, which are part of the original collection. Yes.
So would this be then, I think, what is 108?
Yes, but even you see, if I say that it originates from Rigveda Samhita, I'm just taking the most ancient quotation. But you will find this mantra also in the Upanishads. You will find it in, particularly this one, you will find it in Mundaka Upanishad, you will find it in Kṛṣṇa Upanishad, you will find it in Mandukya Upanishad. You will find it there. So what I did, I tried to, when I was, that's why even here, even in the first one, I first give the Āraṇyaka and then the Upanishad. So I should have done the same thing here also, which I didn't. Yeah.
In our tradition, we said that even Bhagavad Gita, called the Upanishad, like an Upanishad as well.
Yes. It is true because, again, ultimately, it's the wisdom that one receives from, and at the end of every Upanishad, we say, every chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, we say, Om Tat Saditi Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishadsu. And one of the reasons why the word Gita has been used in feminine gender, because in fact the word Gita in Sanskrit is a neutral gender term. Gitam, song. It's a neutral gender term. But why the title is in feminine? There are various reasons, because she's treated like a mother, one of the four mothers, but also because she's an Upanishad. An Upanishad is a feminine term. So because Bhagavad Gita is an adjective to a feminine word, and that's why it is a feminine word. So yes, she is treated as an Upanishad, yet strictly speaking, she is not treated as a Shruti like other Upanishads. She is treated as a Smriti, because she was clearly composed by a human being, which is Vedavyasa. So she's still not, Bhagavad Gita is not part of the Shrutis. She's part of the Smritis. And that division, I think, every tradition accepts. Yes. So while all the other Upanishads are part of the Shruti. Yes, not the Smriti. Yes.
You were mentioning in the introduction about many saints that they started their life as bad people. Then so many yogis talking about purifying their whole life in order to reborn in another life, to purify this other life, like many lifetimes in order to become a saint. So how one can do it in one lifetime that he started it in a bad way?
I think Patanjali's answer to that would be the stronger the desire to transform ourselves and the stronger the impetus to walk on the path of yoga, to do the practices of yoga, the faster the transformation takes place. So the stronger, the more effort we put into it, the faster the transformation. And this future life things, I have always found it a little bit... one of the part of the stories of Triśaṅku is that he gave a challenge as the new king. When nobody accepted him, he gave the challenge that everybody is talking about going to heaven after death. Can somebody help me to attain that heaven while I'm still alive? This was the challenge that he gave, to which then Vishwamitra had responded. I have emitted many parts of the story. The story is very beautiful. But this was one of the parts. The goal of yoga and Vedanta is to experience this peace within this very life, in this very moment. Not postponing it for tomorrow, for day after tomorrow, for 10 years after, for the next life, then this world just becomes like a waiting room. And everybody is just waiting for something to happen. Some groups are waiting for the Messiah to come. Some groups are waiting for the Yawmiddin, the day of judgment, to come. Some groups are waiting for the 10th incarnation, Kalki, to come and remove all the atrocities in this world. Everybody is waiting for something. That is at least my take on that. But yeah, even if it takes lives and lives, and even if we don't experience it in this very life, I think the message of that is that every step, every little step that we take into that direction is still meaningful, it is still helpful, it still introduces a little bit of peace, a little bit of inner joy, a little bit of inner satisfaction into our lives. Even if we are the slowest and the laziest turtle, not like a rabbit, but a turtle, just taking our baby steps, still, those baby steps are capable of bringing about tremendous transformation. I think it is particularly in the Buddhist stories, because the Buddha, he speaks of his 40 lives and how in the previous lives he dedicated each life just to the perfection of one aspect of practice, sometimes just to compassion, sometimes just to non-violence, sometimes just to truthfulness, sometimes just to charity. The whole life was completely dedicated. And like this, he had accumulated perfection in all the different aspects, which then in all the different, you can say, paramitas as they are called, 30 paramitas, perfections. He acquired perfection by dedicating each and every life, and then ultimately he acquired. Yes, so there it comes very potently to the forefront.
Where we can find the stories of
The famous Jataka tales.
Oh,
Yes, yeah, they are the stories. They are collected. The Jataka tales, they are very famous, like the Panchatantra, the Aesop Gol, it's Aesop, the stories of Aesop tales, yes. And similarly, the Jataka tales.
They are from him.
Yeah, they are some are from the Pali texts, and some are from the later Buddha Ashwaghosha's work. Yes, so they have been collected. Yes. No. And now I'm talking about Buddha's previous lives.
I want to know.
You want to know about Triśaṅku? Okay. It's in the Mahabharata, it's also in Ramayana, and it's in several of the Puranas. Yes. It's in the Mahabharata, specifically in the second book of the Mahabharata. It's in the Ramayana there, because Vishwamitra, Vasishtha, these are great characters of Mahabharata. And in fact, the gods of the heaven don't allow him to enter. So then they throw him back. Vishwamitra is trying to push him up, and they are throwing him back. And the reason is neither he can fall back, nor he can go up. So he is in limbo in between, and that's where we get this expression even in Hindi language. At least I heard it sometimes, why you are stuck in between like Triśaṅku. Like in English, limbo. Neither here nor there. So, but then eventually the King of Gods himself comes and welcomes him into the heaven. It's a happy ending. That's the point. And after that, everything was beautiful. Still, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me after the class or in the next class. We'll come back to this mantra again. Yes?
One question is just reminded me.
Yeah.
Because yesterday we practiced asana.
Vatayana.
And you know, as we said in Enlightened Yoga, it is translated with horse face.
With horse
but
face.
then you said it has a different meaning.
Yeah, it also means that gavaksha, that... window, yes.
The window frame.
Yeah, vata means wind, and ayana, with which wind can come in and go out. That is vatayana. So vatayana is also that. So it's also that. How do you call it in English? Yeah, window. Yes.
Frame of the window.
Yeah, and I think that meaning. Yeah, and the meaning is actually, when you look at the asana itself, to me it seems very much like, you don't think?
It seems very much.
Like a window. No?
But a strange and broken window?
That is one of the meanings of the word vatayana, certainly there. But
Horse face has nothing
yes,
to do.
But horse face is also correct or is incorrect?
I will have to check again. We had this question quite a long time ago, and I checked back then, and I can completely not remember now what we checked. It would be, even if the meaning is correct, it is a very, very unlikely meaning, because ayana means home, ayana means walking through, coming through, but that ayana would mean face, and vata would mean which is commonly translated always as wind, that it should mean horse, even if that meaning exists in any of the old ancient collection of meanings. We'll have to check, but it's a very highly unlikely meaning.
It's very quick. It has a lot of wind. Perhaps the wind of the quick passing horse.
What it could mean is that a horse which runs like the wind.
Yeah.
Because ayana can also mean gate.
Yeah.
Gate. You understand gate? Not G-A-T-E, but G-A-I-T. Gate. You know, the trotting, the trotting of the horse, the gait of the horse. So that can also, but then again, ayana would mean that, so a horse which has the gait of the wind. That meaning is also possible of vatayana. That meaning is possible, which has the quickness of the wind. That meaning is possible. But horse face is still... that is a meaning that we checked it once, and I really don't remember now whether I could not find this meaning or whether I found it or not. It was a long time to. It's a very difficult asana.
The next slide. When I see it, and I think when you really can perform it very well, that you really see that somebody is still free, because it has to do with freedom. Still free in the asana, while you like this, then you got something. I think I don't agree, but I can imagine.
Let me look at it a little bit more, and if anything new comes up, I will let you know in the next session. So we will conclude with the prayer that is at the last page number 4. Prayer of universal happiness. सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः।